Welcome everyone. These are supposed to be watched in order. I'm just dividing them up to make it easier for people to watch. So if you didn't watch the first 3 videos, I would recommend to watch those first. We were talking about the concept of different types of heresy that exist in the world, and that there's a type of heresy that can only be answered with silence, and that only someone who is an archetype of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moses, can enter into that world. So Rabbeinu Nachman ben Feges Chusay Ygalenu is going to explain this a little bit deeper. V'da, you should know, ki machlokes bechinas brias ha'olam, that the archetype of machlokes, of strife, of disagreement, of argument, is an archetype of creation. I remember I said this when I was the Rav in Richmond, Virginia, in the Young Israel Shul there, Kol Emes, and I said that disagreement and strife and arguing is sacred in Judaism, and people were very offended when I said that. It's like, but open up the Talmud, every page is arguments. So anyway, what Rabbi Nachman ben Feges Chusay Ygalenu was explaining here is that the whole world only exists because of this archetype of argument. Because the main creation comes from the empty space. And if without the empty space, everything would just be the Ein Sof, would just be the endless light of God. And there would be no place for the world to exist, as we said above. So therefore God had to withdraw the light to the sides and make an empty space, and that's where He created all the world, all the creation, which is all the days and all the attributes. All of this is through speech, as we said above, that by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, as it says in the Psalms. And so therefore, this archetype of strife, of disagreement, of machlokes, is necessary for that, because if all of the Torah scholars, all the Talmidei Chachamim were unified, if they were all one, there would be no place for the world to exist, to be created, because there's disagreements between them, and they disagree with one another, and everyone pulls to his side, to a different side. Through this, it makes between the tzaddikim this space of the empty space, which is the concept of the tzimtzum, of the withdrawal of the light to the sides, that there's different factions and parties, so you have the Ashkenazim and Sephardim, even though they agree, Elu va'elu, but they're different. They're drawing to different sides, different ideas. And you have the Haredim and the modern Orthodox. You have the religious Zionists and the Haredim, the non-Zionists, the anti-Zionists. And you have the difference between the non-Zionists and anti-Zionists, who are on one side against the religious Zionists, but between them there's also disagreement. Should you go to the Bechiras? You shouldn't go to the Bechiras. You go to the Koisel, you don't go to the Koisel. You eat kidneys, you don't eat kidneys. You eat kibbutz, you don't eat kibbutz. And it goes so many ways. Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, back to the Tanoim. So there's purpose in this, because that is where the light is drawn to the sides in order to create this empty space, and the world can exist in that. And the thing is, there's all kinds of worlds, Reb Aaron and Reb Zalman Leib, right? Reb Ben Zion and Reb Mordechai David. There's like a ganze Welt, was beschaffen geworden, right? The Meshichistim and the non-Meshichistim. The non-Meshichistim believe the same as Meshichistim. They just don't want to talk about it, right? I remember when I came into the prison where I work, and there was one guy, a Gavakta Shaina board, and gang with the couple, but he wasn't a Shomer Shabbos. He didn't eat kosher, just he didn't eat davar acher. And he asked me, "Are you from Aleph, or are you from Rabbi Spritzer?" Meaning, you from Rabbi Spritzer as a Meshichist, or from Aleph that they're not Meshichistin, but they still probably believe the same thing. They just don't talk about it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Doesn't matter, right? But Sof Kol Sof, I was like, I'm not a Lubavitcher, So what are you? Whatever. I'm just a Jew. I don't know. So anyway, but he was this guy, who grew up in the conservative shul, and Gavak's a shiner board, and he wears tzitzis in the kapel, but he's a Michal Shabbos, needs nevelas, but he was already a maven that there's a nafkamina between Rabbi Spritzer and Aleph. Right? Because between these machlokes, ganze Welten sind beschaffen geworden. This whole worlds are created in that empty space between these two sides. And through this, you create the whole world through words, as we said above. And all the words, each one that speaks, it's only because to create the worlds. It's created, and not only that, other worlds are created for them. And through this, the worlds are created within the empty space that's in between them, because the Talmidei Chachamim, the Torah scholars, they're creating everything through their words, as it says in Isaiah, it says, "Say unto Zion, thou art my people." And the Zohar explains, don't read Ami, my people, rather Imi, you're with me. Just like, and the Zohar says, just like I created the heavens and the earth with my words, so too you create with your words. So therefore, you have to be very careful not to talk too much. Only talk enough that you need to create the world, and not more. Because if there's too much light, then the kelim, then the vessels, they can't hold on to that abundant light, and they get broken. That's the whole idea of Shviras HaKelim, and that's where the klipos came from. And therefore, the more one speaks, this causes that there'll be more klipos, that there'll be more impurity. And that's this concept of that there's too much light. And through this, that's how the light was broken, the vessels were broken. And through this, that's where the klipos, the forces of evil, came from. And this is what the Mishnah says, all my days I grew up between the scholars, between the wise people. And I didn't find anything that was better for the body than silence. And the main thing is not to give drushes, to make homilies, but the deeds. And the more words one says, the more sin he brings. All my days I grew up among the Chachamim, Kol Yimai Gedalta bin Chachamim, between the Chachamim, between the wise people. That's where the empty space is. That's where I existed, and that's where I had existence between the wise people. And through this separation and the argument that's between them, like we said, this is what it says between the wise people specifically, meaning that there is a disagreement, an argument between them, because if they were all one, you couldn't say between the wise people. And so therefore, through this argument, it creates the empty space, and inside the empty space, it creates the world, and those are the days and the attributes. And this is Kol Yimai Gedalti. That's what it means. All my days I grew up, meaning that I made my days and my attributes bigger. That I grew up, that's the concept of the creation of the world between the wise people, between the sages, meaning specifically between them in the empty space, in the vacuum, because that's where all the creation was made, as we said above. And this is the concept of I grew up, that I got bigger, my days and my attributes got bigger from smallness to bigness. And this is why they're called days, because those are his days, that he created the world, as we said. And this is what it means. I didn't find anything better for the body other than silence, because there in the empty space, there's nothing better than silence, as we said above, because it's prohibited to go there unless you're on the level of silence, the level of Moses, as we said above. And meaning he grew up to that level, and that's what it says. All my days I grew up between the wise people, and I didn't find anything better for the body than silence. That because I grabbed onto this level of silence, the archetype of silence, as it says there's nothing better than silence. So therefore I was able to make my days bigger, and my attributes bigger there in the empty space, because it's prohibited to go there unless you're on the level of silence, as we said above. And this is the concept of the Midrash Ikra Maisa. The main thing is not to give drushes, to say, to darshan, to make homilies, but rather to the deeds. And the more words one says, he brings sins, because all the midrashim, all the homilies, and all their words that these sages spoke between them, the main point was not to say the midrashim, to say the homilies, not that alone, but rather the deed that they should do and create and make through their words the world, as we said above. And don't, like we said, don't say my people, but rather with me, as we said above, that God gives the Chachamim the power to create. And but however, it says the more words one brings, the more sin one brings, because if there's too much light, it creates the evil, the klipas, as we said above. All right, we'll stop here and we'll continue later. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment. We'll see you later.